This is part 6 of the Serialized Content Framework by Caspian Studios, and we're talking about the actual plays that you can run to drive pipeline with a B2B video podcast and serialized content. So I'm going to go through the plays that we run here at Caspian that our customers also run. The first one is a cold outreach play. So step 1 is you create a list of target accounts. Step 2, you narrow down that list to a specific person at each account who you want to invite on the podcast. Step 3, run an outbound sequence, inviting that person to be a guest on the podcast. This is a really good way for people that you have no relationship with to say, hey, these are 20 people for our target accounts that if we could get any of these 20 people on our podcast and develop a relationship with them in any way, that would be very valuable. And we have seen customers use this to create and source pipeline at a very high rate. Roughly, we've seen people be able to close 1 in 10 cold accounts by using this type of strategy. The next play is an acceleration play. So the first step is to talk to your chief revenue officer or your sales team, find the accounts that have been engaged by the sales team but aren't yet ready to buy. So these are folks who said, hey, next quarter, next year, end of fiscal, let's talk. The step 2 is to work with the associated sales reps to craft those email invitations, invite those folks onto the show and say, hey, I know you're not ready to buy until later on in the year, or you're going to look at things like that. In the meantime, we have this really awesome show and we think that you would be a great fit on it. Then at that point, they come on the show, have a wonderful time. They talk to your host who, is in the same line of work that they are. They share it all over their LinkedIn. People are commenting, and that's where step 3 comes in. When you publish that episode and they publish the episode, make sure you have your senior leaders and reps share on their LinkedIns and like and comment. And a best practice here is to just take your favorite quote that they said and just post it on your LinkedIn or post it in the comments. And that'll help get more and more people to see their episode. Then after all this, you can look at later on down the line, was this a meaningful way that it helped accelerate pipeline for those accounts? Did those accounts that were cold, did they pick back up? Or warm, did they pick back up? Or did they end up closing, later on in the cycle? And you can just track that based off of that outreach. Another podcast pipeline play is a re-engage play. So step 1, talk to your CRO, find the list of accounts that have gone stale and need to be re-engaged. And so these are really the stale accounts. These are the ones where 5 emails, no response, however many it is. These people have just not wanted to talk shop when it comes to buying your product. In the same way, step 2, you work with the associated sales reps to craft those email invitations. You send them to these prospects and invite them to come on the podcast. But this time you're doing it directly from the producer. So you're not going to have the sales rep be the one who's reaching out to this person. You're going to have it come from the producer of the show. And this is a really good way to re-engage those prospects. And a lot of times they'll be very honest and upfront with the producer of the show. Say like, hey, listen, we're just in a crazy time. We have all this stuff going on. I just don't even have time to think about that until, 6 months from now. And I was just sick of the salesperson hounding me. And you can get a really, honest assessment there. And a lot of times, this will put a meaningful touch in saying, oh, I've been meaning to follow up. I just been traveling, been overseas, and I just totally forgot about it. And I know they've been emailing me, but I figured I'd get to it someday. And you can really re-engage accounts that have gone cold. The fourth play that we think works really well as it relates to podcasts, and it's something that we don't see a lot of, but I think we're going to see a lot more going forward, is a partner marketing play. Now, in this way, a lot of times with budgets being tight and people trying to do more with less, if you want a little bit less control of your show and you want to bring in one of your key partners that is selling to the same persona, you can bring a partner in and then co-create a show together. This works really well to take 2 partners who already are selling to the same persona and have the ability to go to market together. You get twice as much promotion when people share it on their accounts. You get twice as much, sales reps going at this, and you're able to maximize both audiences of both groups. And it's a really good play to run when it comes from a sales perspective. So step 1, you create a list of accounts that are your joint customers, right? Who are those joint customers who you have a really good joint story? Next, you work strategically to invite the people who are on that list who you think would be a really compelling joint story. Now, a lot of times we've done certain types of storytelling, with those sort of joint personas, but they've never got a chance to have a really long form conversation. And so you can do it that way. The next step is to look at a number of accounts that maybe partner one has closed, but partner two has not yet, and then partner two has closed and partner one has not yet. And you can say, okay, we're each going to do 5 episodes where we're targeting the other person's account and say, hey, by the way, go listen to episode 1 where we had this great better together narrative. You should go check it out. It's like peanut butter and jelly. It's the best thing in the whole world. And if you buy with us, then you should also buy with our partner. And this is something that has worked really well. And those sales reps on both sides can promote that episode, can promote once it's published, and both teams can share, comment, and share their favorite quote of the episode. And this again works really well when you have partners that are selling to the same persona, and you're trying to figure out which accounts you could both go after together from a cold perspective, from one versus the other, or both sharing customer testimonials. The next play here is how to engage your customers with a customer story when they can't officially be a customer story or don't yet want to be a customer testimonial. And so we have all had this thing happen before where you have this amazing customer, but they can't share it publicly that they are a customer, but they would love to do something with you. So, hey, we've agreed to be speaking at your event later on in the year. Well, it's 6 months until the event, and we'd love to get this person talking about us and being with us and our product and service, even though they can't official say that they're a customer or they don't want to give the time for a testimonial. Well, step 1, talk to your CRO or your customer success team or your customer marketing team to determine an account who is very happy but can't do that testimonial yet. Step 2, work with PR to craft questions that won't get anyone in trouble and will showcase some of the cool stuff that you're doing, but without sort of leading them too far. And step 3, you really just want to let them share their experiences. And it doesn't have to be with your product and service. It could just be things that they are doing in the normal run of show, things that they would normally talk about on your podcast, things what they're doing that's been successful. You don't have to make it about features and benefits. It doesn't have to be about you. It can just be about them. And the fact that they're talking on your show is a really good first step to get that testimonial or to maybe someday get legal to approve that you can share that they're a customer. And then the final step there is to post these video clips on your social channels and website, not on the customer page unless you get approval, and in your community. And just that association, we have seen this work over and over again, where that association to have that person's face, have that video shared on your company website opens the conversation to people being like, hey, I saw you were on their that podcast. Do you do business with them? And they say, why, yes, I do. I know that we don't have a testimonial, but maybe I should do one. Or I can't share that publicly, but yes, privately we do. And it's a great play to accelerate those customer stories. The final play here is to leverage other people's shows. Now, of course, we've talked about original content and creating serialized content of your own, but doing the same thing with other shows. Now, there's tons of podcasts out there, and you want to have a very strict bar in terms of you want to be on the ones that are really good, and you don't want to necessarily go on every single one, but there's even the shows with the very smallest listener base might have 1 or 2 listeners that are your absolute ideal customers. And it would mean a lot if you are on that show talking about that. So one thing that we recommend doing is to do what's called like a home and home, where you invite someone on your show who has a podcast, they invite you on their show who has a podcast, and you just both go on each other's podcasts and talk about different sort of things. And you'd be really surprised. The content is usually amazingly good, and also each side's benefit from that type of an engagement. The big thing there is that you want to make sure that you create some compelling content, and it doesn't just talk about like how we make our podcast and stuff that's not necessarily that interesting. Although you never know, some people find that stuff really interesting. So it's really your judgment call on what you think your audience wants to hear. In all of these scenarios, in all of these plays, if a person agrees to be a guest on your podcast, it is imperative that you give that person a premium experience. You need to have a prep call prior to the episode recording. You need to have a professional producer on all the recordings. You need to send the guest appropriate recording equipment if they don't have it. You need to give the guest final approval before the episode goes live so nobody gets in trouble. You need to create social media graphics and video clips for the episode, and you need to send these to the guests for them to post if they want to do that. You need to work with their PR team to make sure everything looks and sounds good. And your team should be sharing episodes from your personal accounts, not just the brand accounts. It goes a lot further if you share from your personal account than brand accounts. Brand accounts are intentionally stifled by LinkedIn. They want people posting from their personal accounts, not from the brand accounts. So something really important to note is that you want to be posting from those personal accounts. And then finally, part of being a guest is it's weird, it's kind of wonky, it's awkward for some people, and you just want to make them feel like their information is being put out there in the absolute best light possible. Sometimes people leave jobs, they change roles, something that they said 6 months ago that they might want to go back. And so you need to make sure that your team is really agile and ready to go back and delete an episode from 3 months ago, or to change that person's title, or to go delete a section or a paragraph, or they wake up in the middle of the night 6 weeks later and say, oh my gosh, I should have never said that. You really need to make sure that your team is agile enough to respond to those things, because they come up. They have come up hundreds and hundreds of times in our work at Caspian Studios, where things like that, you need to be able to make a quick change and be agile enough to make the fix.